hurt victim, or wounded narcissist. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Social media brings certain benefits and many ills. One of those ills is the propensity to which individuals have utilized it as a personal platform for their own grievances. There are individuals that believe that what they do ought to be shared with the world. Just because you have the means of doing so doesn't necessarily mean that you ought to do so. It means that many people, for instance, will share a picture of what they're eating on their Facebook account. That's not particularly interesting to the world, but that individual believes that people ought to see it, and they feel a sense of validation when they receive the likes and comments in relation to it, or perhaps hurt when they don't get many likes and they receive criticism. There are many people who would think the last thing I would ever do is put stuff like that on social media. There are some people who don't bother with a social media account at all. Now, just because somebody shares mundane items such as what they're going to have for their evening meal on social media doesn't make them a narcissist. But it is a narcissistic indicator because of the need to share something which doesn't need to be shared. The necessity of putting something out there which is personal to you on a platform that could be viewed by anybody in the world. This is a problematic behavior because that person might not necessarily be a narcissist, but because they're engaging in a behavior which is regularly utilized by narcissists, it starts to normalize it. I've explained to you previously how the selfie originated from narcissists. Once upon a time, when you went somewhere, you took photographs of the buildings, the landscape, the scenery of other people, and you might ask somebody to take a picture of you with a group or you with your spouse. But then, because of the camera being on a phone and selfie stick, there's a proliferation of pictures of the view, but with the owner of the camera phone in the picture. And thus, that individual would pop up in picture after picture after picture. Thus, it allowed the narcissist a means of saying, look at me outside the Trevi Fountain. Look at me at St. James's Park. Look at me at the Statue of Liberty. Thus, they were able to insert themselves into something that hitherto it would be less likely that they would do so. And therefore, they would then be able to assert control and draw fuel from people as a consequence of their reactions. Why not just show the Statue of Liberty? Why do they have to be in the picture too? Because the reaction has to be about them being there, and therefore putting themselves in that picture enables that individual to assert control and draw fuel. Thus, non-narcissists started to see people using selfies and thought, oh, that looks quite good, and they started to do it too. And thus, the concept of the selfie was born, and behavior which originated with narcissists done to pursue the prime aims entered the mainstream, meaning that a narcissistic behavior became more commonplace and also meant that a narcissistic indicator became diluted because once it originated with narcissists but was now being undertaken by people across all classifications. Similarly with social media, the drive to share something about your life on social media is a narcissistic indicator. It's a private matter which should stay personal to you or with a small group around you. Broadcasting it to the world at large is a narcissistic behavior. It doesn't mean that you're a narcissist. It's simply an indicator. You may recall some time ago I told you about somebody who had posted a link in the comment section to one of my videos. And it was a lady who had been driving her car and she had learned of some information about her former boyfriend and the new girlfriend. She was so alarmed at this information, it apparently caused her to have heart palpitations and shortness of breath. And therefore her immediate reaction to this was not, 1, go to the emergency room, 2, pull over and calm down, but 3, pull over and immediately reach for her phone and record a 2-camera piece, which she then immediately uploaded to YouTube. This was a strong narcissistic indicator. Why? Because the necessity of responding to this news suggested that she was wounded by it, and that she then needed to nullify that threat to control to such an extent that she was complaining about feeling unwell, but didn't actually do anything about it, which suggests that that may well have been a lie, and in the circumstances was more focused on getting her response out to the world than looking after her supposed ill health. One can't say that she was a narcissist as a consequence of the fact that we would need more information, but it's certainly a strong indicator. I'm also reminded of the occasion where there was an individual who I knew was a narcissist as a consequence of analysing many of her behaviours, but she had sent a link to a video on her channel. She had emailed me personally, praising my work, flattery, and then said, perhaps you'll look at my video. So I did. And it showed her in a room, crying to the camera, sobbing about some condition that she was experiencing. And then her cat walked across. And in that instance, she completely broke from crying and said to the cat, "Do you mind? I'm trying to look sad here." And then the cat wandered off, unsurprisingly nonplussed, and then she carried on, crying to the camera. Now, what was indicative about that behaviour was, first of all, the fact that when the cat interrupted her, she stopped. It was like the flicking of a switch, which demonstrated that the crying was performative. That when the cat interrupted, she was able to turn to the cat and chastise it. That all of a sudden the crying stopped. She was fine. And then, once the cat was gone, flicked the switch and back to the performative crying again. Furthermore, the fact that she said, "I'm trying to look sad," she gave herself away, forgetting in that instance that she was still being recorded in effect. She was talking to the cat, trying to control the cat. And thirdly, the lack of professionalism, that having cocked up the recording by virtue of the cat wandering in and breaking her spiel, she ought to have stopped and redone the whole thing. But she didn't. Her sense of entitlement and arrogance enabled her, and blindness to her behaviour caused her to upload that video as was, thus showing her blubbing to the camera, then switching to a completely seemingly normal individual chastising her cat, and then going back to crying again, which showed that it was entirely performative and wasn't genuine, but she still deemed it appropriate to upload it. That again was not only a strong indicator, but already confirmed the position as I'd seen other evidence to support what she was. But note, the common theme is that both those individuals felt a necessity to share on camera about the way that they felt. For most people, they might keep their feelings to themselves, or they'll ring up a friend or go and see a friend or speak to a family member. They don't broadcast to the world about how they feel. Unfortunately, as a consequence of the fact that narcissists utilize, not all, but many, social media as a platform to talk about their feelings, which is actually being done to nullify threats to control, to continue the assertion of control and draw fuel, that bleeds into the mainstream, causing non-narcissists to think that it is appropriate to share every little bit of your life by doing a piece to camera and uploading it on some platform somewhere. Rather than thinking, actually this is personal to me and private, I'll keep it as such, there then becomes this almost instantaneous desire that I'm upset about the fact that I didn't get the promotion, so I'm going to record a video and put it up on Instagram. I'm upset that my football team lost, so I'm going to rant and rave about it and then upload it to YouTube for people to offer their sympathies and support as a consequence of that unfair loss of my football team. This behaviour was driven by narcissists, but then bleeds into the mainstream, making it more difficult for people to discern what's going on, which is why I emphasize the importance of ensuring that you utilize looking at a range of different sources for the person's behavior over a sustained period of time. But there are instances where the behavior, whilst not determinative in itself, provides a very strong indicator that you may be dealing with a narcissist. People get hurt. Relationships end, and a person's world may well fall apart. The person that they're emotionally invested in has terminated the relationship with them, perhaps cheated on them, and they are distraught. The world as they knew it is no longer. Their hopes that were invested in this individual have been shattered. Their dreams have been shat on, and they are hurt. Some people suck it up and deal with it in a stoic fashion. Others cry, moan, complain about the harshness and unfairness of it all to a friend or a family member, or maybe perhaps even their therapist. All understandable reactions, but they keep them to themselves. But then there are those which feel that it is appropriate to tell the whole world about how they've been mistreated. Now, given what I've said, there are some instances of people who are actually genuine victims of being hurt, now unnecessarily sharing their hurt with the world at large, and they're not narcissists. However, it still remains the preserve of many narcissists to utilize social media as a means to seek to indirectly nullify that threat to control and draw fuel by way of sympathetic responses. You see this happening all too regularly. As per the examples that I explained earlier on, the individuals, rather than deal with it themselves, deal with it privately, deal with it people around them, go racing to social media to record a video to tell the world about how badly they've been treated because they need subconsciously to nullify the threat posed by the actual or perceived poor treatment and to draw fuel from people's responses. The haste at which this individual goes to social media to upload the video and the manner of what they're talking about invariably gives you a very significant clue as to the fact that you may well be dealing or watching a narcissist. One of my viewers sent a piece of footage to me wanting to receive my input in relation to what is actually going on. And I'm going to play the footage for you and then offer my observations thereafter. Here comes the footage.
The worst pain to ever feel in this lifetime is to feel so unappreciated and so unwanted by the one person you love most. You go over and beyond for this person. You do everything they've ever needed you to do in a relationship, and when it comes to love, you've done everything, and you know you've done everything for this person. They've needed the loyalty, they've needed the commitment, they've needed you to stand there and show them and prove to them that you love them, and you've done exactly that, but they haven't. That shit hurts the most. To feel so unwanted, and for you to sit here and cry and beg for that person to give you what you needed and what you wanted out of them, and they can't give that to you. They don't give a fuck to show you. That right there is called taking advantage of true love. Someone that truly loves you you're taking advantage of it. You're so comfortable with thinking that they're never gonna leave you. They're never gonna walk away. They're always gonna continue to love you and love you and love you and love you. That you take advantage of it. Well, I'm telling you what, they're gonna walk away and give all that love to somebody that deserves it, and they're gonna reciprocate it. They're gonna give right back. And then you just lost out on real true love because you didn't think about what they needed and what they wanted, and you didn't act upon it. You motherfuckers, get your shit together, because nowadays people are not seeing true love when it's right in front of their face. Right in front of your face. It's right there. Stop taking advantage of it. People don't understand what true love's about nowadays.
There you are. What do you think? Is that a hurt victim? Someone who was invested in a relationship and it has gone wrong and is genuinely hurt and has decided that it's appropriate to go to their video on their camera phone, on their smartphone, and tell the world about how hard done to they are? Or are you watching a narcissist who has been wounded either by the actual loss of a relationship or the perceived loss of a relationship, with the consequential necessity of the nullification of threat to control, unable to do so directly over the appliance, the individual turns to social media, pulling up in a car, recording a video and posting it? What do you think it is? What do you think that you've just watched there? Do you believe you've seen a genuine hurt victim, or do you believe that this is potentially a wounded narcissist? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. But what do you see? What have you watched? Well, it's accompanied with sad music. So there appears to be some stage setting going on, which is a form of manipulation of the viewers. Furthermore, it's a rant. There aren't any tears. There doesn't seem to actually be any genuine sadness, but rather just sheer fury or anger at the way this individual has been treated. Now, it's fair to say that non-narcissists experience anger and can do so in the way that they've been treated by somebody. But usually in the immediate aftermath, there's more sadness and hurt exhibited rather than the angry stroke furious reaction that you're witnessing here. Furthermore, note the melodrama, the worst pain to ever feel in this lifetime. Is that somebody who is genuinely hurt and is just expressing themselves that way, or are you witnessing the melodrama of a narcissist who is subconsciously talking in such terms, believing himself to be suffering the worst pain ever, but isn't actually, and is articulating it thus in order to provoke an audience into responding? You'll notice also the almost martyr-like mentality of going above and beyond for this person, investing in the relationship, doing everything that you could for this person. We're not hearing much about what the other person has done, but all about what this person has done, how wonderful they are in terms of what they provided in the relationship. There is the listing of the attributes of commitment and loyalty, and that you've stood before them and proved that you've done all of these things, but then, of course, they have not. They have failed. You'll also notice the reference to having begged and cried for that person to give what you need, what you've wanted, but what they failed to provide. Again, all about the needs and demands of this particular individual and how the other person has fallen short in that regard. Starts to sound like a healthy dose of blame shifting, doesn't it? And a rather self-centered approach about what you want and what you need. There is a labelling of what is true love. There is the labelling of being taken advantage of, the victim mentality. There is then the criticism of the other individual, basically to take advantage of them, to take them for granted with regard to the amount of love that they provide. And then there comes the threat, in effect, which is, well, that person's going to take their love and give it to somebody that actually deserves it and will reciprocate with regard to that love. And once again, reference is made to what that person wanted and needed, all about the needs of the complainant. There is then almost a call to action in relation to these people for them to get their act together, because they're failing to recognize true love when it's right in front of them, right in front of their face. Now, we can't say what this person is from just a short clip. This might be someone who has suffered the loss of a relationship, that somebody's walked away from them, and they've given their all into that relationship, and they feel justifiably hurt and aggrieved at how they've been treated. Or we might be looking at somebody that is actually wounded as a consequence of the threat to control that's been posed by that person departing them, and rather than try and resolve the issue by speaking to them or keeping to themselves their hurt and discussing it with a small group of friends or family, believes that it is appropriate to engage in a tirade to complete strangers over the internet for the purposes of subconscious control over the offending individual. We can't say either way, because we would need more information to make an accurate assessment with regard to this individual. What we can say, however, is that the information as presented does contain a number of indicators that would support that this may well be performative rather than an action showing the behavior of someone who is a hurt victim. As stated, and I make this abundantly clear, these are just my observations about this particular individual. The footage was sent to me, and I was asked to provide my observations about it, and I have done so. And as I always counsel you, it's important to look at a range of behaviours. But we can look at certain behaviours and say, yeah, that's problematic. There are red flags there. Those are narcissistic indicators. And this video is resplendent with them. That does not mean that this individual is a narcissist. We cannot say that. All we can say is that we are witnessing indicators. And, of course, indicators can come from people who are not narcissists also, and that the rest of their behaviour supports that they are not a narcissist. Nevertheless, with regard to this individual, it would merit further analysis of further behaviours. Are there similar videos of this nature? Does this individual habitually issue tirades from his motor vehicle on an ongoing basis? If so, that then starts to paint a more determinative picture. But the whole point of this is to invite you to think about, are you looking at a hurt victim or a wounded narcissist? And to consider the points that I've advanced and to share your observations in the comments section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.